Welcome to the Insomnia Project. Sit back, relax, and listen as we have mundane conversation about something that's just there, something that's just ordinary. We hope you will enjoy the episode, and we hope you will listen and sleep. I'm your host, Marco Timpano, and joining me in the studio today is a dear friend, Alex Treude. Welcome.
Hi, Marco. Thanks for having me.
Alex, I understand your mother's a fan of the show. She listens to the show.
Yeah, so shout out to Nancy if she's listening right now.
Thank you, Nancy, for supporting us. And Alex, you and I go way back because you were one of my students when I taught performance in improv and comedy in Brampton, Ontario.
Yeah. Oh, there's my... Yeah, going way back, when I think I was around 13, I'm going to say, I started at Christine Marchese's studio in Brampton, and ended up learning improv from yourself during my formative years, and basically the man I am now is all due to you, Marco.
You did end up studying theater, which
Yes.
is so wonderful, and we've actually had the opportunity to work together now, and it's so lovely.
Which is really crazy,
Yeah. But, sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah, just it's cool using all the techniques and whatnot that I've learned over the years and in the class together to actually work professionally.
Yeah, so great, and I hope to work professionally with you in the years to come as well. Something interesting that I just discovered is that you're a poker player and you enjoy playing poker.
Yeah.
How did you get into that?
Well, I guess like most people, my first game, I just played at a family gathering
With Nancy?
I think she was there, but she wasn't playing at the time. But it was sort of on my dad's side, extended family.
She's more of a pit boss.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then just over the years, just got more and more interested. Followed, more poker YouTube channels. Watched, the World Series of Poker. Got more interested to it along with my best friend, and we sort of would talk about it a lot and run ideas off each other and whatnot. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. What are some key things to know for the novice poker player?
That's a good question. Probably patience is probably the biggest aspect of the game.
And what do you mean by patience? Like patience in the sense waiting for to be dealt, or before you play, really examine the cards? What exactly do you mean by patience?
I guess I mean, usually it's what hands you play, like being patient to wait for the right hand and also the right spot to potentially make a lot of money or chips in the hand. Some people get a little crazy the second they see, two big cards like a king and a queen.
Sure.
And they put too much money in, and when they just have a pair of queens, they might put too much money in and not really wait for, better hands that have a better opportunity of you winning.
So it sounds to me like there's a strategy that a lot of players don't seem to focus on because of the excitement that the game also provides.
Yeah, and they're itching to win that big pot, even if it's not, the right time or really meant to be, and they're actually behind, potentially.
Right. So if patience is one thing one should be looking out for, what's something else that you would recommend?
Probably just accepting that, statistics and luck is a big factor, and there's only so much you can do. And when, the one card in the deck that makes you lose comes up, just to accept it and not get emotional at the game. Like, that's probably the worst thing you can do, is to get really, I guess that essentially goes back to gambling in general, is to try not to get too invested or committed to a certain hand, and just be able to take the loss and move on to the next one.
I see.
And be confident in your own strategy is sound, let's say.
And when you say statistics, how do you look at statistics when you're playing a round of poker?
Basically, I just look at calculating odds on the fly. That's essentially where the statistics come in. Terms like, return on investment and other statistical terms that I'm blanking on.
Fair enough.
The name of right now.
But so, for example, if you have two queens and a variety of number cards,
Yeah.
What statistical thoughts are going through your head at this point?
So just what are the chances of my hand improving, like a queen coming down and therefore giving me a set of queens? Also, if there's, let's say, some number cards like a 4, 5, 6
Sure.
on the board, then you're calculating, okay, what are the chances that a card that will make that 4 in a row come down and potentially give my opponent a straight, let's say, right? So if there's a 4, 5, 6, my opponent has a 7, what are the chances of an 8 or a 3 coming?
So what would you do in that case? You have a 4, 5, 6, mixed red suit, and 2 queens in your hand.
Well, assuming that let's say they're 2 black queens,
yes,
for example, that's probably a case where you'd want to bet fairly heavily because that board is, like the 3 cards that are on the table, are very dangerous because someone could make a straight or a flush in that case. So you want to bet heavily when you have the better hand at the moment.
Okay.
And basically make someone not incentivized to call that bet and chase their draw, essentially.
I see. What do you mean by chase their draw? I like that term.
Basically when they're trying to see the next 2 cards and trying to hit the card that will make their straight or their flush. And that's something that a lot of poker players get really annoyed by, is when they have the better hand and someone's chasing too much, chasing the cards and
Sure.
hitting that lucky card to beat them in the end.
Okay. And I guess my next question is, how important is this term, which is often used when playing poker? How important is your poker face?
That's probably one of the most important factors, I would say. Yeah. Just because that should be like the base level that everyone is playing at with a poker face.
Okay.
Because otherwise people, like myself, who are fairly attuned to certain human behaviors while playing poker, will be able to pick up on certain things like hand shaking, like looking at your cards too much or looking at the board too much. Like, for example, like if you have three of a kind, like you have 2 queens and there's a queen on the board and you keep looking at the queen, that's probably a sign that
I see.
So the best poker face is to just have a completely neutral expression, and not look at anything in particular.
Would you say your theatrical background and your background in improv has helped you with both your poker face and seeing other people's tell?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would probably be my poker face. It's helped me with. And if, for example, if you're in a hand and someone starts talking to you, I'll be fairly comfortable talking to them but still in a way maintaining a poker face, because I'm not going to give away any hints in the way I'm talking and just naturally have a conversation, which is kind of, something you do in improv.
Of course.
Making a conversation seem natural that you're actually, trying to really expertly craft at the same time.
Can you tell us what a tell is?
Yeah.
And
so
I purposely worded it that way because I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. So tells basically certain behaviors, movements that you can pick up on that kind of tip you off. So actually, I would say a more advanced tell is an interesting one. For example, you have someone who's somewhat decent at poker. They've learned, they've studied a little bit more than the average person. So when they're bluffing, which is, of course, when you make a bet and your hand is actually garbage, some of these players might actually go do a poker face, but their poker face is such that they stare at their opponent. So if ever I'm faced with someone who makes a big bet and then has a completely neutral face but is staring into my soul, like trying to tell me, like, look how strong I am,
right,
that to me is a tell that they're actually weak and they're bluffing and they're trying to compensate or overcompensate for it. So that's probably one of the most interesting tells I've encountered, because it's kind of counterintuitive.
Sure. Yeah. I once played a poker dealer on a show called Flashpoint, and one of the Actually, I played it on 2 shows. I played it on Flashpoint and on The Listener. And one of those shows, I was dealing, and there was actually a professional high-stakes famous poker player at the table, and I don't remember his name. He was a French-Canadian gentleman.
Oh, probably Jonathan Duhamel?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was.
Because he won the World Series of Poker once from Quebec.
It was him. Thank you. And he told me that he lives in Vegas now, because I guess he plays so much, or at the time he lived in Vegas.
Yeah.
And he would be invited to games in the home. And one of the people he loved playing with was Celine Dion's husband at the time, René Angelil, because he would bet big and wasn't a great poker player. So I found that story. I always found it very charming. He said lovely things about him, of course, but he was like, it was just great to play with another French-Canadian in Vegas and play the game that he loves.
Yeah, and of course Celine Dion is very big in Vegas as well.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I think she was performing there at the time. Like she had a residency at Caesar's Palace.
Right, yeah.
Speaking of Vegas, do you enjoy playing poker in casinos?
Yeah.
It's a different game, though, in a casino than when you're playing at a table in someone's home, would you say?
Yeah, or at one of like the sort of like underground, quote-unquote, like clubs that you could go to as well, because it's a lot more regulated, which for me is often peace of mind.
Sure.
And it just feels a bit more glitzy, a bit more glamour to it. And of course you get more people who are just probably there to gamble,
right?
Which is, as a poker player, if you're trying to make some money that session, you're pretty excited when someone comes over who looks a little intoxicated or looks like they're just played a lot of blackjack and are ready to gamble.
Fair.
So it's a lot of fun, and just the whole experience of being in a casino is fun. But
sure,
I like to stay away from the slot machines and the roulette and whatnot.
So your game of chance at the casino is definitely poker.
Yeah. Oh, but I do quite like blackjack as well. But that you kind of turn off your like strategy brain and just be like, okay, the best I can get it to is slightly under 50-50 chance to make money. So you just accept it and just go along for the ride.
What do you do if dealer has, in blackjack or 21, dealer has a face card?
Yeah.
And you've got 17.
Oh yeah, you always stand.
That's right. 17. That's the house strategy, right?
Yeah.
And that's the strategy that I also use.
Although you can hit on a soft 17 just to go more into
And what does a soft 17 mean for anyone who's listening who might not know what that means?
Yeah, that means when you have an ace, because an ace can be either a 1 or an 11. If you have it in combination with a 6, that makes it a soft 17, because right now it's either 17 or it's actually just 7.
And therefore, if you take a card that happens to be a higher card, you're not going to bust on 17 because you can transform that 17 into a 7. Fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're a nice little like pillow, and it's also good when you're facing a face card, because that's most likely the dealer has a very strong hand. You want to try to improve your hand there and get a little bit up closer to 21.
What do you do when you have 2 aces and you're playing blackjack?
You split those suckers.
Always split the aces.
Yeah.
Explain what that is. And I should mention, I studied to be a blackjack dealer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyways, tell us about splitting aces.
Yeah. You just, you get to put down a second bet that's equal to the first bet you made, and then physically take the 2 aces and move them apart. And now you have 2 hands, and each ace gets dealt another card. Usually at casinos, it's just you get dealt 1 card on each ace and one and done kind of thing. So
you could, if you're dealt a face card,
you get 21.
You got 21.
And that's why you always split them, because there's a lot of cards that equal 10.
Right. And you've got 2 chances in that moment to get 21.
Yeah.
And every time I've split aces, at least one of them has hit blackjack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah. So basically, across a lot of games, having 2 aces is a good thing.
Sure.
Always is the best thing to get, I would say. Yeah. Other than blackjack, I guess, in blackjack, but
yeah,
2 aces is a great thing across the board.
Do you ever buy insurance at the table when you're playing blackjack?
No. I've learned that
Oh,
insurance.
This is a good tip from Alex
Yeah.
Treude. Okay,
I'm not going to get sponsored by any casinos.
No,
saying
no,
this,
no.
but yeah.
It's all good. But tell us about insurance and why you don't buy insurance. And I should say, we're talking about insurance at Blackjack, not house insurance or car insurance.
Yeah, that you should probably buy.
Yeah.
So insurance is, I forget the exact rules, but I think if the dealer's showing an ace,
Right.
which means, of course, there's a good chance they have a blackjack because they only need some type of face card to have a blackjack at that point.
Or a 10.
Yeah, or a 10.
Oh, no. Is 10 considered? Yeah. It is considered.
Yeah, it's 10 and all the face cards.
And all the face cards.
So basically, you're allowed to put an amount, I think, half your bet on insurance. And should that person the dealer rather have blackjack, you would lose your bet, of course, because you lose the hand, but you would get paid on your insurance bet, which essentially means you would break even on the hand. However, if the dealer doesn't have blackjack, you lose your insurance bet and you keep your regular bet. So what I learned from statistics, from like a website on statistics.
This is great. Insider information.
Yeah, is that it's actually essentially a sucker bet, a bet that will lose you money in the long run, like no matter what. Like unequivocally, you should never do insurance.
There you go. Okay, so since we're in the world of casinos, I want to talk about 2 casino games that I've discovered and loved.
Okay.
One of which is a classic casino game, and one of which is a more modern casino game. Which do you want to hear first?
Let's do the classic.
Okay, the classic is roulette. Have you ever played roulette?
I once played roulette.
Okay.
I've observed it being played many times. But yeah.
So here's what I love about roulette. And I'm going to be quite frank with our listeners. I only play if it's a low-stakes table.
Yeah.
Which means I was in Vegas, and we were at a casino, and it wasn't one of the casinos right on the Strip. It was a Holiday Inn that was just off the Strip behind, I want to say, Harrah's. And they had what do you call it when you get drinks at half price?
A happy hour?
They had a happy hour, thank you. Table happy hour, where all their table games were like half price. So the minimum bet was, I believe it was $5 on the table. So you just had to have $5 anywhere on the table.
Right.
Which is great because that means you can spread your chips around and not have a lot of money at stake, right?
Yeah.
If you win, you win. If you lose $5, right?
Yeah.
So that gives you the opportunity to throw chips just about everywhere, depending on. So I was throwing chips here, there, and everywhere, and betting on numbers, betting on odds, betting on color, and letting things ride, right?
Yeah.
And Alex, when you play that way, with no care in the world, there's a good chance your chips will start to pile, and it's a really exciting game because when it hits your number,
you get paid so much.
And you could be sharing that number with someone else at the table, so you both get excited. And if you put, I'm sure you know, but I'm just saying, if for our listeners, if you put the chip, let's say between 2 numbers, so if you've got 3 and I want to say like 12 next to each other, and you put that chip on the line, if it lands on 3 or 12, you get half what you would if it landed on 3 and your chip was on 3. And if you put the chip on the 4 corners of 3, 4, 12, and 13. Now, I don't know if those numbers coincide, so I don't want people to be like, it's actually 18. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get a quarter of whatever that lands on.
Right, yeah.
So when you start to play like that, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
So we would play the happy hour every day.
Nice.
Except I didn't realize that on Fridays it wasn't a happy hour. So I was playing with $20 on the table, thinking that my chips were representative of 5.
Oh, no.
And I couldn't understand why I had so few chips to start with.
Yeah.
But then I started to accumulate chips, and I was like, oh, this is great, right? And I was like, at some point I said, oh, how much was that I had bet on that, on black 17? And she's like, oh, that was a $75 bet. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, you had so many chips. I go, but I thought it was a $5 table. I thought those chips. And she goes, oh, no, today's not happy hour. And I was like,
Well, it's happy hour for me.
What did I just know? No, I lost 75 on that one bet, thinking I had put maybe $15 on it, but it was actually a lot more. So always beware of when you're playing a a roulette table, what you're putting down. Any card game, actually.
Yeah, that's too bad, because I was going to say it'd be great if you had won like, $100 or whatever, playing like that. And then the moral of the story would be, sometimes you just need to play with, your money like they're just chips and that's it. And, just have fun and it'll work out. But not in this case.
How do you sort that out with your chips when you're playing? Do you look at them as a monetary value, or do you look at them as if they're chips and don't have so much riding on them?
Yeah, no, definitely the latter. It just becomes easier to rationalize your play or deal with the certain strategies and whatnot of your play when you just think of it as chips. And, it's money at the beginning when you buy in, and then at the end when you cash out, then it's money again. But during that time, it's best to think of it as just as chips.
That's another great tip.
Yeah.
Now, the more modern game that I've played at a casino recently is War. Have you ever played War at a casino?
I haven't played it myself, but again, I've seen it being played. It looks fun.
It's fun, and I can't help but think your odds are pretty good because it's 1-to-1, whoever draws the card.
Yeah.
And it's just a game I remember playing as a kid.
Yeah.
So getting to play it at the casino, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Favorite casino you've been to?
So far, I would say the Montreal Casino de Montréal, is really nice. It's very glitzy. It used to be the old, oh boy, I can never remember if it was a French pavilion or American pavilion during the expo.
In 67.
In 67. Sure. But they remodeled it, and it's like really fancy looking. It's definitely one of the nicer ones in Canada, I think.
I haven't been to that one yet. I went to the one in Halifax.
Oh, yeah?
And I went to the ones here, a bunch here in Ontario.
Yeah. Like Falls View and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's in Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
But I do love certain casinos in Las Vegas.
Well, I haven't been yet, and I'm sure my favorite casino is somewhere in there.
Okay, so which casino would you want to play poker in? And then I'm going to ask you blackjack. Of all the casinos in Vegas, what would be your first choice to play poker in?
Probably the Venetian. The Bellagio.
Okay, why those two?
So the Venetian, I just heard, looking on blogs and forums and whatnot, that it's just a really nice poker room.
Sure.
And the players there aren't too intimidating. Like in general, like the crowd it attracts is pretty, no one really good, no one really bad, but, it's a fun time whereas the Bellagio is a really nice casino, and therefore attracts, I think, higher roller players or like better players. So I think probably the Venetian, just as a beginner to Vegas poker, at least I would play there, and also I just like the theme of Venice because I'm a really big fan of Italy as like a travel destination. In general, yeah. Okay,
so where is the place you would most want to play blackjack in Vegas?
I would think the Bellagio then.
Okay.
Play blackjack just because it's glitzier, nicer, and you're just playing against the house, so that's kind of always true no matter what casino you go to. So, just to check out the Bellagio.
My experience having been to Vegas a couple of times was I found, Alex, that oftentimes the casino you don't expect to win money in is the casino you win money in. So, for example, Treasure Island is not necessarily a casino that I would be like, let's all go to Treasure Island and have a great time, mainly because of what you said. It's not a themed casino that speaks to me.
Yeah.
Pirates and stuff like that. It's just not my thing. Yeah. Whereas I had a friend who got married there, and that's why we went there, and it was wonderful, right?
Okay.
So it depends on your theme, right? What speaks to you. But I won $60 on one pull at a slot machine while I was waiting for my wife in the bathroom to come out of the bathroom. I was like, let me just throw in it, and it on one pull with one I want to say coin. I think I had a coin at that time. I won $60 and I was so happy. So for me, Treasure Island will always have a sweet spot in my heart.
Yeah.
But my favorite place to play blackjack was actually the Wynn Hotel.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's a nice place
And I
too.
thought it would be Caesars because I just thought that there's something about Caesar's Palace that is like, nostalgic, and, you think the Rat Pack, you think Sinatra, you think things like that. You think of gambling. I just think of gambling with Caesars, and I had no luck in Caesars. I didn't have a great time. But then I was at the Wynn, and I was like, oh, let's just play a couple rounds at this table.
Yeah.
And I had such a great time, and I won some money, nothing grand, but enough that I have a soft spot in my heart for the Wynn.
Nice. Yeah, and they have a nice poker room too there. I think it's in the Encore now or something, but that's one that a lot of poker players highlight as being nice too.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite professional poker player? Or celebrity? You know how there's those celebrity poker?
Yeah.
Do you watch those too?
Yeah. Yes, in terms of celebrity poker, Don Cheadle is actually a pretty good poker player, and he's a lot of fun on those shows.
Sure.
Celebrity poker. And same with Kevin Hart, also plays a lot of poker, like recently actually.
Right.
And obviously he's hilarious with his table talk, or that's what they call it, like in poker, when you're trying to talk to players and try to get an edge on them by throwing them off their game or what have you. And favorite poker player is probably good old Toronto born and raised Daniel Negreanu, who's like a Canadian icon and also just a poker icon in general.
Sure.
Or a Canadian poker icon, I should say. And I think a Canadian icon as well. He has a great documentary about him on Netflix, actually, about his story. Because, it's just really interesting to see someone at the top who is from the same city you're from. It's really interesting, and talking about spots that he used to go to downtown. Like, hey, I know that place.
That's awesome.
And he's just famous for his table talk, his table banter, and whatnot, and just be a really eccentric individual. And he's just like a ton of fun to watch. Do
you enjoy table talk?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy it. I usually don't participate in it when I'm playing against, tougher players, I'd say, just in general at the casino. But when I'm with my friends, we table talk each other and say crazy stuff and show each other our hands in the middle of a hand. And like when we're all in, let's say, I just show my hand, like, this is what I got. So amazing. You make your decision. You clearly have this or that. Yeah. So,
I'll say this, Alex. I really enjoyed our table talk today here on the Insomnia Project. Thank you for being a guest.
Yeah, thank you, Marco, for having me. It's a lot of fun.
As is a lot of table games, but with every game that you might play, exercise caution with your gambling.
Yeah.
And if you need to, speak to someone who is involved in, gambling associations that can help you if you get into problems with that.
Yeah.
On the other side, I want to thank you for listening to the Insomnia Project. As always, the Insomnia Project is produced by Drumcast Productions, and this particular episode was recorded in our hometown of Toronto, Canada.